we're going to talk first off about the separation of powers issue. The authorization for use of military force and the president's order, basically, through both of those, the president says that he has authority to do the tribunals and to do them as he sees fit. The authorization for use of military force, however, does not have anything explicitly through Congress authorizing the president to do the military tribunals. And so we get into an inherent separation of powers issue. If you look at U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Congress has the power to define and punish, basically, offenses against the laws of nations. Well, this provision has been read by the courts to give Congress the authority to establish military tribunals and to define their limits. So in essence, through this, the president has to act with congressional authority to set up the tribunals. And without this, the president doesn't have the full authority to move forward. The president, however, relied on this section. U.S. Constitution, Article 2, Section 2. The president shall be Commander-in-Chief of the Army and the Navy of the United States. Through his Commander-in-Chief powers, the president argued, he had the authority to do military tribunals on his own, and that he could then enact his order that set forth the guidelines that these people were to be tried by. Obviously, the extension of that argument, that the authorization for use of military force that only augments his power to do these military tribunals, is a scary proposition, because it doesn't explicitly define what he's allowed to do, but he's able to basically take all necessary and appropriate force. So our argument, very simply put, is that the president couldn't act alone in establishing the tribunals or in trying Mr. Hamdan. And there's another part of this. Because Congress has the power to define and punish, we also argued that the crime that Hamdan was charged with, and this doesn't come until he's later charged after we file the petition, but he's charged with the general crime of conspiracy. That crime is not a crime that's defined by Congress as a war crime or the type of crime that's triable under military commission. So for those two reasons, we argue that separation of powers issues precluded the president from acting alone and moving forward with the trial of Mr. Hamdan.
Well, yeah, and so this was, I mean, like when we were looking at the case, this is like first principles, right? You've got, this is obviously a case of constitutional dimension. It's just, let's look to the, this is just sort of basic lawyering. Let's look to the provisions of the law that we're dealing with that address the issue. And these are sort of the two constitutional provisions in tension, the define and punish clause and the commander-in-chief clause. And obviously the administration read and continued to read throughout the course of the litigation the commander-in-chief clause extraordinarily broadly. But this dichotomy is sort of, you do this in the absence of whether or not Congress has spoken to military commissions. And indeed, Congress had spoken to military commissions through the enactment of the UCMJ.